All right, we're back on Wood Sticks, your favorite hockey podcast. We want to start by saying we are recording today, as we always do, from the Aquarius Home Services Studio. It's going to be a fun show today. We're going to talk a little wild on the front end, but our guest today is a longtime high school hockey coach up at Warroad with the boys team and a dear friend of mine, Jay Hardwick. They get the Class A state championship done this year with an unbelievable, drama-filled, just spine-tingler of a game. 5-4 overtime victory over Hibbing in that championship game a couple of Saturdays ago. And I coached Jay's sister, Mo Hardwick, at St. Thomas when I was a women's college coach. She was a stud player, one of our top players. And I got to know the Hardwick family. I'm going back now 25 years. But I just was so happy for Jay, and I was so enthralled by the talent on the ice throughout the entire state tournament. I thought it'd be a great time to connect with him and kind of, find out kind of behind the scenes what it was like to be a part of this run. Warroad always one of the top teams in Class A hockey, and it's a community that lives and dies for the game. And so today we're gonna get to go under the hood a little bit and find out about that Warroad program and his hockey team and all the fun that a championship can bring, all the emotion involved with it. I think you're really going to appreciate where we're headed today. Before we get there, we're recording this on a Thursday, so you're probably at your weekend stop. And this game that's going to happen tonight for the Wild probably has already happened, but it's the rematch with the Chicago Blackhawks. I was in the Windy City a couple nights ago, got to cover that overtime thriller for Minnesota. Zuccarello wins it with a great pass from Marcus Johansson. I think the two big things leaving that game, I think I've talked about this on the show here for a couple of weeks. I'm not really that concerned with if the Wild are playing their absolute best hockey right now and if they're producing and they're burying these teams that they should beat. It doesn't bother me right now. It's a veteran team that knows and has known for a while that they're going to be likely starting on the road. They're going to be the third team in the division, and they're going to have to beat either Colorado or Dallas. And so when you have a veteran team that you can't really fool, and they know this, you've seen their game spike when they've played some of the upper echelon teams in the league. They've beaten the Tampa Bays. They went to Vegas and smoked the Golden Knights. Done that a couple times, actually. They beat Colorado within the last week and change. But they have struggled with some of the non-playoff teams, and including that game in Chicago where they blew a 3-1 lead. Does not concern me. Two biggest things, and I'm going to keep saying this until we get to April 18th when the playoffs start. Are the Wild healthy? Do they have all their key players? And Eck is right now on the sidelines, and I think that's okay. Get him right in time for the playoffs. And are their goaltenders trending in the right direction? Because if this team's going to make a cup run, and they're more than good enough to do it, don't take my word for it because I cover the team. Look at the betting market where they're one of the top 5 betting choices in all of the betting markets to win the Stanley Cup, and understand that if they're healthy and their goalies are trending in the right direction, they've got a shot. They can still play great hockey and still get beat. If you're playing the Avalanche or the Stars, it's going to be an absolute grinder. You are going to be the underdog in the series, and we've known this all year. And so I'm not going to sit back and assume anything because they very well could get beat again. It's not the same old Wild team, and if some fans want to throw negativity at me, go for it. I don't care, because this team is more talented than any team I've ever seen in Wild Sweaters, and this isn't their only chance to win a Stanley Cup. This team's going to be together, and I think they have a 4 or 5 year window right now where Kaprizov is still in his prime, where Quinn Hughes is getting to his prime, Matt Boldy is getting to his prime. Same thing for Brock Faber, Philip Gustafsson, even Jesper Wallstedt. The list goes on. Danilo Yurov hasn't even got there yet. He looks like he's coming. My point is this. It's going to be tough. And for Minnesota sports fans, tough isn't always what they want to hear, because we've been beat up year after year, decade after decade. And for all of us that are old enough, it's been since 1991. The 4 big ones, and again, you can talk about the Lynx and the Frost, and that's awesome. I love those teams. I cover the Frost. But if you're talking to hardcore, old school Minnesota sports fans, they're going to throw the Vikings and the Wolves and the Wild and the Twins, and they're going to, it's been since 1991. And they're right. It has. But if you take a look at this group and understand that there's a 4 or 5 year window, you're probably going to understand that this might be the year. It also might not. So be prepared, because if you're being honest and you're looking at this pragmatically, these are 3 of the best 4 or 5 teams in the National Hockey League right now. And I believe that to be a fact. And I think if you look at the betting market, if you talk to, I just had a great conversation with one of our former guests on the show, Eddie Olchuk. Eddie's seen a lot of additions of the Minnesota Wild. And I'll be honest with you, and Edzo's a friend, and if he listens to the show once in a while, which I think he does, he would not run from this. For many years, he said, you guys aren't good enough. And we'd always talk, and he'd say, listen, Kev, and he's one of the few guys that calls me Kev. He'd say, Kev, you guys aren't good enough. And I just had a conversation with him in Chicago a couple nights ago, and he said, not only are you good enough, he goes, I think it's going to happen soon. You guys are making a run. And that made me happy. I'm like, that's cool, man. Like that's a guy that has no affiliation with this team. He's in my opinion, he's the best analyst on TV. And this is his opinion. So I'm like, that makes me feel pretty good. So we'll see how it all plays out. But as you're watching these games down the stretch, don't sweat it if they lose to a team that might not be a playoff team, and don't sweat it if they go through stretches where they don't look like the absolute best addition of this team, because I'm going to tell you right now, this group, when we get to April, is going to be ready to fire a bullet. They're a veteran team. They know they're good. The swagger that I see on a daily basis around that rink is unlike anything I've seen in my 20 years of covering this team. I think Quinn Hughes, when he came over in mid-December, is a big part of this. It's not the only part of this, because you've got a lot of really good players on this roster, but he has taken this group to a different level. And I think the key players on this team realize that. And I think they're going to be set up for a really fun series in round 1. I think, as we look at this, we've been thinking Dallas for a long time, but after Dallas went to Colorado and won in overtime last night, they're within 2 points. And I don't run from the fact that if Colorado ends up being our opponent in the first round, that's good. Fine by me. You're going to have to beat them both anyway. And if you really think this is a cup contender, which I do, doesn't matter which order you beat them in either. But I do think the goaltending on the Colorado side is something Minnesota can expose. With Jake Ottinger, that's going to be a tougher nut to crack. He's, in my eyes, one of the 2 or 3 best goalies on the planet, and he's got great numbers against Minnesota. You're going to have to probably win 2-1, 3-2, grinding physical games against Dallas, where I think against Colorado, it might be a little more high octane, and Minnesota now can play a lot of different styles of game. They can outscore teams if they have to, and if they have to beat the Avalanche and play them in a series and outscore them, I think they can. So yeah, let's just sit back and enjoy what could be a really fun run here. We're a month away from the playoffs starting, and I've got a ton of confidence in this group. I hope you do too. So we'll see. But we're going to segue into high school hockey, and Jay Hardwick, you'll get to know him here on the show today. He does things for the right reason. He coaches because he loves the game, he loves the kids, and he puts his heart and soul into his program. He's done it for years. It just so happened this year they won it, but he's done a great job for many, many years up in Warroad. And I think you got to see that program on a big stage a couple years ago at Hockey Day, Minnesota, and hear from him and the players and the coaches and the fans. Like, this is a community where hockey is absolutely sacred. It's religion. And this year they get it done. 30 years after he did it as a player, Jay Hardwick is a state championship head coach. We'll hear from him next here on Wooden Sticks. This show doesn't happen without the great support we get week in and week out. And I want to start with one of our biggest supporters. That is John Schweitz, my dear friend, who helps run the good people at Minnesota Masonic Charities. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Masonic Charities. When you think about the Masons, I get it. You think about the funny hats, those pancake breakfasts, which are phenomenal. My dear friend John Schweitz and I have chatted about this, and it's so much more than that. They've got the Masonic home over in Bloomington. They've got the hospital for the children over at the U of M. They are the largest fraternal organization in terms of charitable needs in our country, and they deserve a ton of recognition. So thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities, for all you do and for supporting us over here at Talk North, and a special thanks to my good friend, John Schweitz. Also want to thank the good folks over at Onyx Fish and Onyx Maps.
Have you ever driven past a piece of land and wondered who owns that? Or maybe you need to know exactly where a property line runs. That's where Onyx Hunt comes in. And it's not just for hunters. There are folks using Onyx for their jobs every day throughout the country. From farmers and ranchers mapping out their fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, to construction workers needing to know who owns what property, this app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership maps, aerial imagery, and property boundaries in your pocket, Onyx Hunt is the tool for the job. Try it free for 7 days. Download Onyx Hunt in the app or Google Play Store, or visit onyxmaps.com/hunt to get started.
And of course, our great friends of Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Jay Hardwick next on Wooden Sticks. All right, we're back on Wooden Sticks, as always, recording from the Aquarius Home Services studio. Really looking forward to this conversation today. Anyone that listens to the show or knows me knows about my love affair with the state tournament. It goes back many, many years. Also a huge fan of the Hardwick family. And so special year this year for the Warroad Warriors, led by my dear friend Jay Hardwick, who joins us, the head coach of the boys Class A state champions. That's got to sound pretty good, Coach.
It sounds awfully good. I'm still getting used to it a little bit, but every time somebody says it, it feels really good.
I don't know how you compare the two experiences, and I don't think many people out there can probably even comprehend it, but 30 years ago, you were a player on a state championship team for Warroad. Now you're the head coach of a hockey team that does it in the same town, a town where it matters so much. Which is more special? Can you even separate the two experiences?
Well, I think for me, it probably the one as a coach is more special for me, just because of, when I won it as a player, I was just a 16-year-old sophomore, on a really good hockey team. And, I was just playing the game, and it was, I didn't know any better. And now as a coach, after, doing it for all these years and seeing actually how hard it is to win a state championship.
Yes.
It kind of, it feels like it's all been worth it, all the years and everything that you put into it. It's more rewarding, I would say, as a coach than it is as a player.
Having spent enough time in my lifetime up in Warroad, knowing how much hockey means, how much the hockey programs mean to that community, what's it been like in the last, I don't know, week or two, once the tournament gets over and you get back to Warroad? I can't even imagine the celebration really ever slowing down, knowing how much hockey is kind of your thing up there.
Yeah. Obviously right when we got back, it was crazy. We, the fire trucks and the police and ambulance and the whole works, they met us, about a mile outside of town, and then led us through town on a little whip, as we like to call it up here. And then we ended at the arena, and there was, I don't know how many people, hundreds of people all waiting outside. I know when we pulled up, even the kids were like, holy smokes, there's a lot of people here. So everyone being there that supports us all the time. It's not, they aren't jumping on the bandwagon. These are people that are at every game and have supported the program through the thin years and the good years. So it's not just for me and the team. It's special to the whole community.
So take me back to when you were playing the game. Did you always know that you wanted to be a coach, or was it more you loved the game of hockey and at some point you realized this was the best way to stay involved with the game of hockey?
Yeah. I, as a player, like you said, I love the game, and, I just wanted to play hockey forever. And, I was very fortunate to play for a long time, a lot longer than most people get to. And, I think it was probably when I was in college, I didn't know what I was going to do after college. And, I still played for 6 years after college, but I think when I was in college, I kind of got that, in the back of my mind that whenever I was done playing hockey, that coaching would be something that I wanted to do. I never thought that it would be in Warroad. I didn't, I kind of, you can ask my wife, we kind of, flew by the seat of our pants, and each year kind of took us wherever we were going. And, we ended up back in Warroad and never left. And I was fortunate enough to be able to, a year or two after we moved back here to start coaching the hockey team.
So, and having lived there, played there, and understanding how much hockey means to everybody in Warroad, there is a different kind of expectation. There is a different kind of pressure when you're a coach at Warroad. So for you, all these years, and you guys have had a ton of success, but those expectations, I think, are unrealistic a lot of times and extremely high. How have you balanced that out, knowing that you're doing it the right way, knowing that you're here to cultivate not just great hockey players, but great young men? And then obviously now you're on the other side of it with this championship. But as you know, Jay, there's a process involved, and there's no guarantee you're going to get that carrot. So how has that gone for you, knowing those expectations every year?
Yeah, and like you said, I knew coming in. I grew up in Warroad. I played in Warroad. I kind of knew how it was. You don't really see as a young, as a high school kid and as a player, you probably don't see a lot of that behind the scenes stuff and the different things that coaches deal with. But I knew that it was there, and it's funny. My grandpa was the coach here for, I think, close to 10 years back in the 60s and 70s. And, he coached Henry Boucher and when I told my grandpa that I was going to coach the high school team, like he tried to talk me out of it. And, he said, you don't want to do it. He said, it's Warroad and it's a lot, because he'd been through it. He'd lived it. And, fortunately for my grandma, she kind of stepped in and said, well, why would you say that? Nobody tried talking you out of it when you started doing it. And he said, yeah, but I didn't know any better. And, so, I mean, he knew. And then, I even had other friends of mine that maybe weren't from Warroad that were kind of saying the same thing. They said, why in the hell would you want to coach in some place like that? Because they know how it is. But I knew too. So it was a challenge that I was willing to accept. And it's, I don't mind it. I like having expectations, and I like, carrying on that tradition of Warroad hockey. And, I've just tried to, over the years, my kind of thinking is, if you do things the right way and you don't try to cut any corners or cheat anyone or cheat anything, that it's going to all work out. And, you're never, I've gotten some great advice from people over the year. My assistant coach, son Shagaby, told me when I started, he said, the one thing I learned about coaching is that somebody's always going to be mad at you. And, it's, the top end kids, the parents might be mad because their kid's not playing enough, and the bottom end kids are going to be mad because they're not playing enough, and somebody's going to be mad that they're not on the power play. And so he said, he just told me, he said, as a coach, it doesn't matter how well you do, somebody's going to be mad at you. And I've learned to live with that. And my skin has gotten pretty thick. And another good friend of mine, he told me it was my first year coaching, and I already had parents that were mad at me, and he told me, and he wasn't a hockey guy, but he had played basketball and he had played baseball, and he was a sports guy, and the only advice he gave me was, he said, you know what, he said, do it your way, do it the right way, and at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for, and you can look yourself in the mirror and know that you did the best job that you could possibly do. And I've carried those things with me through the years, and it's nice to finally see the results.
Yeah, for me, looking back, it's been a long time since I was a boys' high school hockey coach. I'm going back to the mid '90s. It was the hardest part of coaching for me was not being able to make everybody happy. And I think, for people that don't understand, high school hockey in Minnesota is different. Everybody pours their heart and soul and their lifetime into it. And these kids get to high school and they've got this one, window of time, whether it's 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it is, to make the most of it. And that coach is given that responsibility. And there's a lot of emotion involved. And I love the way you put it, Jay. You got to do it your way. You got to do what you believe is right. And a lot of times that's going to ruffle feathers, but I was young at the time and I thought I could make everybody happy. And I found out the hard way, it doesn't work that way. And until I got to coaching college where I could really kind of build my own thing, it didn't make sense to me. And so I've always, and I've got a lot of gentlemen like yourself that I consider dear friends that do this at the high school level. And there is a price to be paid. And, you are going to have to dig in at some point and just know you're doing the right thing. And I think coaches that last in this business, and you're one of them, are incredible at what they do. They care about the kids and they love the game. And that's the one thing I've learned over time. And so it isn't just the years like this year when everything falls into place and you win. There are other years you've probably coached your ass off and didn't get rewarded. But if you do it your way, you can feel good about it every time when you tuck in every night.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all you can do. Like you said, there have been years where I've done everything that I think I could possibly do. And it just, a bounce here, bounce there. I remember the one year I had a very, very good team and we lost in the section final in double overtime. And, a kid had a great scoring chance and he went off. It went off the crossbar, and then the other team came down and scored about 30 seconds later, and that was that. And then they went on to win the state championship. And I had talked to a couple college coaches at the state tournament, and I knew they were at that game, and I asked them. I said, from a professional perspective, is there anything I could have done differently? And, I was soul searching, just, it was killing me that we were that close. And they said, no, they said, you did everything you could and your team played and did everything they could. It's just, that's the game of hockey. Sometimes it doesn't go your way. So it made me feel a little bit better, but not much.
That's so true. So true. Let's get into this team. Team that'll live forever up in Warroad with the championship. And, I try to get to know your club from afar. I had the chance to work part of the tournament on the TV side and the broadcast side. And you look at box scores and you look back at stats and you have those conference calls with you guys the week leading into it. And I look at a great schedule, right? I mean, I see a loss early in the year to Delano. I see a win against Cathedral. I see Grand Rapids on the schedule, Matamidi, Hermantown, Hibbing, ironically, back in January. At what point, because you've done this for a long time and at what point during the regular season, Jay, did you look at this group on and off the ice and say they have kind of the makeup that I think is capable of not just getting to the tournament, but taking this whole thing down?
Yeah, and like you said, it's not, I like my goal, our goal every year is to be in the state tournament and try to win the state tournament. And, but, I've had years where that's probably unrealistic and I've had years where that's very realistic. And, I knew just looking at the landscape of Class A this year, we had played, just about everybody that was at the state tournament. And I was comfortable as the season went, that if we got to the state tournament and we played well and I'm still a big believer because I've been there enough now and I've been there with very, very good teams, is that, obviously at the state tournament, you have to play well and, you got to have some guys maybe play a little bit above their, punching weight too. And then also I think you got to be a little bit lucky. And, I've been on the unlucky side of those things before, and I think this year it's just it kind of all fell together. We had obviously the team to do it, and then everything just fell into place, and we were fortunate to become state champs.
Well, a big part of the story in my eyes, as we got ready to cover you guys at the tournament this year, is you're rolling through your section playoffs. You win big over Park Rapids, you win big over Thief River, and you win that section final game 3-0. So you really, through those games looked like a team that was on a mission. But then within that section final, Jay, you guys lose your starting goaltender. And for some teams, they split all year long, and it's not that big a deal. But I look back at the scores, and I look back at when you deployed each of these goalies, and Finn Hansen's your starting goaltender at that time, really good tendy. He gets hurt within that section final, and here comes Patrick Kennedy off the bench. What kind of a jolt was that for you, your coaching staff, and your team, knowing you could probably still get through that section final, but now you've got to try to win a state tournament. You got to come to St. Paul, and it's a guy that's played, but it's not your starting goaltender. That had to be, I think, quite a challenge.
Yeah, it's obviously something you don't really prepare for. I didn't go into the section final thinking that we were going to switch goalies after the first period, and but so you just kind of roll with it, and that was I wasn't so nervous because Patrick had played. He played probably close to half the games his junior year. Him and Finn went back and forth until Finn kind of took control of that starting job. And then this year, Patrick played, I think, 6 games throughout the year. And every time he played, he was very good. So, we had confidence in him, but you never know. And, but that section final, he came in and it was still, I think it was it was 0-0 when he came in, and we got a couple goals, but I mean, he made some huge saves when we were on the penalty kill, in parts of that game to keep it, keep the lead for us and keep everything going in the right direction. And I mean, if he doesn't come in that section final and play like that, it certainly could have been Detroit Lakes in the state tournament instead of us. And then, once we get to the state tournament, I was probably most nervous for that quarterfinal game because, okay, we made it through sections, but now we're on the big stage and the bright lights, and
right.
And I thought if we could get through that first period against Northern Lakes and Patrick could make some saves and feel the puck and kind of settle in, I thought we would be okay. And again, it's 0-0 after the first period with Northern Lakes, and then we kind of found our groove offensively, and then I mean, the whole tournament he was outstanding, and especially that championship game. It was just some of the saves he made. I didn't realize until I watched the video afterwards. You can't really see everything from the bench, but some of those saves, like in the second period, I think he had 21 shots, and it was just unbelievable. And I couldn't be happier for him and our team. And he's a kid that is really liked by his teammates. When he went in, they were fired up for him. He's a senior that's paid his dues, and he's worked hard, and they were, I think the team kind of rallied around that, we're not going to let this stop us from accomplishing the goal that we have at hand.
I'm really glad you brought up how well liked he was by his teammates, because watching your games during the tournament, that is something that struck me early and often throughout that entire weekend. But really that championship game, especially, like, you can tell, and I played the position of goalie, and I always watch with a keen eye how players react in different situations around the goaltender, because I look at the goalie a lot like a quarterback in football or a pitcher in baseball. They can really dictate a team's vibe or confidence, and the love that they seem to have for Patrick in between some of those saves and the whistles, and just watching the body language of his teammates, that struck me as being a really big part of maybe that championship run, because when you put a goalie in that situation, people have to be on board, and it sure looked like your guys were.
Yeah, and I've said that Patrick's kind of like his relationship with his teammates is kind of like that, that little brother that you pick on, where you can give him all the crap in the world, but nobody else can, and it's kind of every day in practice. The guys will score on him and they'll give it to him, and then he makes a big save and he gives it right back. So it's that competition, and that's that friendly banter between teammates where they're having fun, but they want to get the best of each other, and that's what I think it is they rallied behind that this is a kid that came in and is doing the job, and we don't want to let him down, and we know he's going to do the best he can not to let us down. And the crazy thing about it too is Patrick didn't start playing goalie until I think his second year Pee-wees.
Oh, wow.
He had kind of, when he was younger, he had kind of dabbled in the goaltender position a little bit here and there. And he had a couple uncles that had played the goaltender position. And I think his second year Pee-wees, they didn't have a Pee-wee goaltender. And the Pee-wee coach, basically told him and told his parents, they said, hey, you want to be on the Pee-wee A team this year, you're going to play goalie, because if you don't play goalie, you're going to be on the Pee-wee Bs. And I think that made their decision for him. And then he just stuck with it ever since. And, you love to see the kid that, picks it up late and then just works his butt off to catch up and then get where he is today.
That's a really cool story, Coach. All right, so you get through the quarterfinal. You end up winning 5-0, and you match up with Delano, who's an incredibly talented team, who's been ranked in the top 2 or 3 all year long. They beat you way back in November, 3-1, and within that game, it had a really good ebb and flow to it. You guys both have this high end talent. So, what in your eyes was the difference? I believe it was 3-3, either late second or actually through 2 periods, and then you guys came out in the third period and took the game over. But in your eyes, what were some of the keys to that victory? Because I thought Delano had one of the real talented teams in the state this year.
They did, and it was, even though it was the first game of the year, when we played them, I obviously I hate losing, and I was frustrated to lose the first game of the year, but in the back of my mind, because we outplayed them, for stretches in that game, and especially in the third period, we had it in their end the whole time. We just couldn't score. And, so kind of in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what, hopefully we see these guys again at the state tournament, and I know we can beat them. And so I had that, confidence, but yeah, in that game, we were down 2-0, and then, and it just wasn't a good period for us, that first period. And after the first period, I wasn't happy, and the kids weren't happy either. We went in and we kind of regrouped, and we knew we had better than that. And then we, come out and score 3 goals in 88 seconds to start the second period. And now it's a whole new hockey game. And then, I thought our answer was really good. They scored, pretty quick after that to make it 3-3. And then I think we answered the next shift to make it 4-3. So I just think we had the confidence. And then I think the big thing too was our depth. Obviously their top line was unbelievable, very dynamic, and they all probably, between the 3 of them, they probably had 200 or 250 or 300 points, and they had obviously the higher seeds. So we kind of challenged our second line, where we said, you guys are going to have to play against them, because if that's the matchup they want, they're going to get. And, we said, right, you guys have to do the job. And, both our second and third line, there were times where they were out there against that line, and we just said, you got to shut them down, and then we'll take care of business after that. And I thought as the game went on, our depth at, defense and our forward depth really helped us there, because that top line played a lot, and I think they got tired a little bit, and they were only playing 4D, and so their D got a little bit tired, and we just kept rolling with our guys, and eventually just kind of wore them down as the game went.
All right, so now you've beaten Delano, and so now you at this point, you're playing great hockey. Pucks are going in. You've scored 11 goals in the tournament here through 2 games, and I think everybody kind of knew on the other side of the bracket, Hibbing was going to be there waiting for you. They looked like the team to beat coming into this state tournament, and another team that you had played earlier in the year. They got you 4-2, I think, back in January. And so this is where you want to be, Jay. This is the championship game I think a lot of hockey fans dreamt about. A couple of northern schools with a ton of talent that play up-tempo hockey. And now that you've won it and you've gone through the stress, and I can't even imagine. I mean, I was stressed sitting on my couch watching that game. I can't imagine what the hell you guys were going through. But thinking about the memories that were made and the longevity of certain championship games. And, I've lived through 50-plus tournaments as a fan or a coach, whatever. This game goes down as one of the all-timers for me. And if you could go back in time and win the game 5-1 and never have to sweat in the third period and just soak it all up, would you, or would you still go through what you had to go through in that roller coaster that was specifically the third period and then into overtime?
Yeah, like you said, the stress level, probably I would like a 5-1 game, but just the way it played out with Hibbing had unbelievable team. They were the team to beat, and the players that they had and their goaltender were phenomenal, and so we knew that there was a big task at hand. And but I think the players, we weren't afraid. They were confident, because it was similar to Delano when we had played Hibbing during the year, and lost. We didn't think that was our best game, and we knew we needed to be better, and we were playing better at the state tournament than we were in January. And so I don't think the kids had a fear of Hibbing. They just knew that we were going to have to show up and we were going to have to play our butts off, and that's what they did. And the way it all worked out with Hibbing going up late and then us tying it with 35 seconds or whatever it is, 46 seconds left in the game, and then winning in overtime. It's kind of the way I looked at it. It was a little poetic justice, at least for me, because I'd been on the other end of that when we had lost to Matamidi in the final in 23. It was very similar. We were up, and they, I think, pulled their goalie and tied it late, and then ended up winning in double overtime. So as much as the stress and the roller coaster ride that we had, I didn't mind it, because it was a little bit of sweet victory for me to be on the other side of that for once.
And I got to tell you, watching high school hockey, when you have a 3-1 lead going to the third period, it certainly feels great. You're right where you really need to be. But in high school hockey, when you see the other guys rattle off 3 straight, and it happens slowly, right? At first, it was just that goal a couple minutes in to the third period, so it's 3-2. Now it's a nail biter. You kind of expect that anyway when you're playing a top-ranked team like Hibbing. And then they score those 2 quick goals, and inside a minute apart, it goes 3-3 and 4-3. And for high school kids that play with that emotion and to get that gut punch, I'm just curious, because at the time when they go up 4-3, there's under 4 minutes left in that hockey game, Jay. What are the conversations like that you're having with your assistant coaches and that you're having with your hockey team to kind of get everybody to settle into now having the lead taken away, and now you're down a goal, which is a huge range of emotions, to get back where you need to be to even come back and tie it?
Yeah, and that's exactly why I took time out after they went up 4-3. There's still 3 minutes and 45 seconds left, and I talked to quickly, kind of said to the assistant coaches, I'm like, we need to take a timeout, and they agreed, and so I took that timeout, and honestly, my message to them was, to the kids, and in that moment, and there were other times in the tournament where I'd said the same thing. I just tell them all that, okay, let's take a deep breath, let's relax, let's get our bearings here, and then we got to go play hockey. And that's basically all I said. I told them, I said, we got lots of time. We'll get the goalie if we need to at a certain point. But I told them that nothing needed to change. We'd gotten to that point and we'd played very well. And I said, we just needed to keep playing hockey, playing the way that we've had been all year. And then we just had to go out and find a way to tie the game. And fortunately we did.
All right, well, take me in your eyes through the tying goal. It happened, as you mentioned earlier, Jay, with 46 seconds left. Gavin Anderson, number 7 on your team, such an impressive player to watch. His offensive skills, the way he shoots the puck, he stood out to me as one of the elite players on either Class A or AA that I watched that state tournament weekend. But as that play develops, what are you seeing?
Yeah, and in the moment, I didn't see a whole lot because it's just it's kind of all a blur. And as I've probably watched the game 2 or 3 times, since then. And the biggest thing that I take away, and I'm proud of the players, is that there's under a minute left, and we've got the goalie out, but there was no panic in our game. The puck kind of comes to the side of the net, and Roderick Q Jackson, he gets it, and instead of throwing it at the net or just trying to a panic play, he has the poise to get it and find Broden Honfit at the point, and then Broden too, the poise that he shows there, where usually everyone's just yelling shoot at that point, and you're trying to get it on net and hoping that it hits somebody's skate and goes in, and Broden has the poise to get his head up and make that play where it's kind of a shot pass, because he sees Gavin there with his stick down, and he puts it on Gavin's tape and he redirects it into the net, and now it's a whole new ball game. So it's just the poise that our players had, and the confidence to make plays in a very stressful moment. That's the biggest thing that I take away from that tying goal.
And that's why you play the schedule you play. That's why you guys, again, with the experience you bring to the table as a head coach, put them through the paces for months to get ready for these moments, right? And so as a fan now, when I watch high school hockey, I always think of the goalies, and overtime at a state championship is such a big moment for these kids. And when anybody asks me what I'm hoping for, I'm always hoping that whoever wins, I want it to be a good goal. I don't ever want it to be a horrific broken play, a puck from behind the net, a goal that a goalie is going to take with him or her for their life and think, oh my God, I can't believe that puck went in. So looking at that goal, and it was early in overtime for you guys, it was a minute in, it was an unbelievable play. It's a goal that no goalie would ever feel bad about, but it's also a play that from a coaching perspective, you think of the drills you put your team through, whether it's regrouping, 3-on-2, entering the zone, trying to create offense. I mean, it looked like textbook, high-end, skill-filled hockey. I don't know what kind of view you had from the bench, but watching the replays of that goal, that's high-level hockey right there. That's NHL-style puck movement, and that had to make you feel not just winning, Jay, but the way your club executed in overtime, that had to make you feel pretty proud.
Yeah, it did, and like you said, a lot of times in overtime, it's a broken play, or if somebody throws it from behind the net and it hits a goalie skate or hits somebody's.
Yeah.
And it happens that way a lot of times. And, for us to score that way to end it, but it didn't surprise me because, going into overtime, I told my message was, cause Hibbing, they throw the kitchen sink at you. They want to get up and go and they want to score, and they're sending, one defenseman, sometimes 2 defensemen, up in the rush. And my message was, if we can defend, we're going to get our chances going the other way. And that's basically exactly what happened. They got it down our end, and they shot and it missed and it rung around. Well, they had guys caught, and all of a sudden we're on a 3-on-1 with a back checker coming, and then as I've watched it too, like you said, the running them through the paces. There's a drill. I'm a big creature of habit and routine, and you ask any of my kids, they'd be able to rattle off our the day before our any of our games. It's basically the same practice where there's 7 or 8 drills that we do, and one of those drills is a 3-on-2 double regroup drill where you regroup it a couple times and then you go in on a 3-on-2 and you make a play. And as that play developed and was executed, it was something that I'd probably seen in practice hundreds of times, and for them to do that in that moment is just shows the skill and confidence and poise that they have to pull that off. And that's a big reason why we're state champs now.
I got goosebumps as you were telling that story, because anyone who's coached and played the game, you realize in certain moments, and you hope, right? You just hope that in the biggest of moments, some of that practice time, that repetition, it comes back to sink into a point where these kids can go out there and execute at a high level, and to see that play out. I mean, that's just the icing on the cake, right? Any way you win a state championship, it's going to feel unbelievable. But to see that type of game where these two skilled teams go back and forth, and Hibbing has an unbelievable team, and you guys were able to take that punch, get down in the game, tie it up late, win it in overtime, playing at that high level. That really is, that makes it that much more extraordinary moving forward. And I think on the front end of this podcast, I spoke to my audience about the connection that we have. I coached your sister Mo at St. Thomas at the college level, and got a real taste recruiting her of just how special hockey is in Warroad. And I always knew it. Warroad Roseau for me is in my lifetime, without a doubt, one of the greatest rivalries in sport. So the first text I get after you guys win, and it had to be within minutes after that puck went in, is a picture of Mo and your sister together, those two at the game, celebrating in their black and gold. And it brought me back to the first time I drove up there to recruit Mo, and meeting you guys and your family, and what a hockey-loving family the Hardwick family is. So I think of that and that picture and this moment for you guys as a family, because yes, you got it done. You did this as the head coach, but knowing your family, Jay, I know how much it means to every one of them, and it makes me just smile. It makes me so happy.
Yeah, and that's it. And that, it had been through my mind a million times, how's it going to be if I actually, we win a state championship, and in the moment, you're kind of in shock because all of a sudden you did it. And then, but just afterwards, the emotion from everybody, the players are crying and the coaches are crying, and I've got, I can see parents and former players of mine, crying. And, fortunately my son was able to sneak down on the bench after the game, and he's crying, and, give him a big hug. And it's just, it shows how much it means to everybody. And then, after we get out of the arena, and, I go, we went and met all the family and fans, and, to give my sisters and my brother and my dad a hug, and just, how much it means to, it means just as much to all of them as it does to me. And then not just in our family, like there's numerous families like that in Warroad where they've had, 2-3 boys go through the program, and they've seen the heartbreak of the state tournament, and now to finally have one for their family and the program and the whole community. It just, the emotion of all of it was just unbelievable, and it's something I'm never going to forget.
All right, we'll close with this, just a couple minutes, and we'll let you go. Really unbelievable stuff today. I'm loving all these stories. It's got all the feels. So for you, is there a way here at the end of this grind, and all the heart and soul you and your staff poured into this, is there a time now where, and I'm certain you guys either have had or will be having your hockey banquet, but for you personally, Jay, are you going to go on a big spring break trip to go somewhere warm and relax? Are you just going to sit back and and kick back up in Warroad and soak in some of the fun up there. How do you kind of come down from this now?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Every year after the season, it usually, win or lose, it usually takes me a couple weeks to decompress. I know my wife will tell you, when we have lost at the state tournament, it's tough for me to get out of bed for a couple days just because
Yep.
I'm completely drained. You put your heart and soul and everything you got into it, and then all of a sudden it's over, and now winning, it brings a whole another set of things. Now we're designing the rings that we want to get, and they're making t-shirts, and we haven't had our banquet yet. We will sometime this spring. We got some players that left, and they're playing junior hockey right now. So we're going to wait for everyone to be here so we can all do it together. And, it's going to be awesome because it'll be the first one that I've been a part of where we're having a banquet as state champs. And I would love to go on vacation, but I don't think that's in the cards just because I still have the kids at home, and now they're getting into the HPs and all that. And then, I'm the golf coach in Warroad too. So whenever the snow melts, we're going to get out on the course and start golfing. But no, it should be mandatory. I've always said that all the high school coaches should put into their contract that they get a week's paid vacation somewhere after the high school season's over, because you really need it. And I haven't been able to do that, but I'm trying to get back to a little bit of normal life. But it's been fun, and I'm still enjoying that state championship victory.
Yeah, there'll be a buzz up there for a long, long time. So I enjoyed watching your journey. I know how much has gone into this, and just incredible drama in that championship game. And I meant it. It's a game that I think is gonna live on for a long, long time because of the way the game played out, but also because of the talent on the ice. Both those teams, your team and Hibbing, so much high end talent. It was a great. I mean, you look at both A and AA this year. I think the 26th state tournament is going to be one that lives on for a long time. And you see Minnetonka with that big lead and have that slip away to Moorhead. Both these championships were very memorable. And I think that's just going to make it a little more special for everybody in Warroad, but specifically for your coaching staff, for you, Jay, and for your players. I think they're going to be talking about that game, not just in Warroad, but throughout the state for decades to come. So thank you for doing this today. I know I'll see you, whether it's at a Wild game here during their playoff run, or obviously covering high school hockey here in the near future. And please pass on a hello to everybody in your family. I do text with Mo all the time. She still gives me a hard time. She gave me a hard time when I coached her. She still gives me a hard time now. That means she loves me, and that's all I need. But just so damn happy for you, and I'm really glad we could connect today on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And don't feel bad because Maureen gives everyone a hard time, but that's who she is. So,
yeah, no doubt about it. Well, Jay, again, awesome job. That's Jay Hardwick. This is Wooden Sticks, and this has been a state championship edition of the podcast today. I'll be back after a quick break to put a bow on this week's edition of the show. All right, we're back, and that was emotional, man. That was, the end there. That got that's exactly what I was hoping it would be. Like Coach Hardwick, he took us in the locker room, he put us on the bench, and all the great feels that go into that type of a run, a magical run for the Warriors, an unbelievable hockey game to close it out, and just as you can tell from our chat today, just a really easy guy to pull for. And I try not to take sides when I broadcast high school hockey games. I sit back when I'm not working like I did on that particular Saturday and watch. And I loved watching Hibbing. I thought they had a really special team. Got to know their coach a little bit in our time. We covered them on Hockey Day in Shakopee 2 winters ago, and then and certainly got the chance to converse with him on another conference call leading into our coverage on Channel 45 this year in the tournament. And so you're never really rooting against anybody, but I've known Jay Hardwick for decades. I've known that family forever. And it was really hard not to enjoy what turned out to be just an unbelievable game. But I was pumped when Jay's team got the dub, and texted him shortly after. And I'm glad we were able to connect today and have a great conversation about it. That's what the game to me is all about. And I think this year the high school tournament was just spectacular, and these games will be talked about for a long time. So as always, I appreciate your feedback. You can ping me on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Gorgomatic21. If you want to hear from a specific player, a specific coach, somebody that might be interesting to you, I'd love your suggestions. And again, we'll keep grinding away on this regular season as we get down to the final dozen games for the Minnesota Wild. We've got a big game this weekend against the Dallas Stars in St. Paul. That's a 3:00 game this Saturday, and I hope that the Wild can find a way to maybe send a message that when we see you next, whether it's in the first or second round of the playoffs, it's not going to be an easy time. I think this Minnesota team, as I mentioned in the opening segment, has what it takes to make a run, whether it's this year or the next couple of years. I think we're going to be treated to some hockey into May and maybe even some hockey into June. That's what I'm thinking about right now as the weather starts to warm up. Thanks again for listening. A special thanks to Jay Hardwick for taking the time today. Congrats again to him and the Warroad Warriors. And always thank you to my producer, Alex Haugen, who makes this show happen behind the scenes. I will chat with you next week here on Wooden Sticks.